Hi, mate. This is Brockholes, and up until 2007 this was a gravel quarry, but by 2011 it had become the UK's first floating visitor attraction. The old quarry was bought by the Manchester, Lancashire and Merseyside Wildlife Trust, and it was the brainchild of a Mr. Adam Khan. He built this attraction based on the floating marsh houses in Iraq. It stands at 2 metres above the water, and it stands on hollow concrete pontoons, and the approximate size of the site is about the same as a football pitch. It features a restaurant, a cafe and a handful of shops. You can even get married here and have your wedding reception. All the excavations from the old gravel quarry have made several different little ponds, and the site is chock full of wildlife. You get your usual ducks, we also get snipes and the incredibly rare ospreys. It can be found if you follow National Cycle Route 622, which is also known as the Guild Wheel. If you want my opinion, you only have to do the bottom half of the Guild Wheel, and that's what we're going to do today. So let's bimble.
deafening. You still won't figure it out. Figure it. With all your thoughts on your mind all the time, oh, it's deafening. You still won't figure it out. Figure it. With a simple frame of mind and a little time, you can protest all you like. We both know, with goodwill on your side and a little time, you can have just what you like. We both know things could be easy if you just try. You'd be better off this time. Have it your own way if you like. Just try. I know you heard every word, every line, but you're missing it. Why won't you figure it out? Figure it. I know I talk really loud. If you heard, oh, it's deafening. You still won't figure it out. Figure it. Mind and a little time.
This bridge was closed in 2019 because it was at risk of falling into the River Ribble, and if you'd have been walking across it at the time, you'd have fell in with it. You'll be excused for thinking that it's a 20th century bridge, what with its concrete legs, or it's a little bit like Trigger's broom. It's had many different legs and many different tops on it. It was originally built in the 1790s, and it was a wooden trestle bridge. That means lots of small wooden spans. The bridge carried a tramway. It was a tramway for coal. In 1792, Parliament passed an act that allowed a canal to be built between Wigan and Kendal in Cumbria. It was a monumental task, and they managed to complete this section from North Preston all the way up to Kendal. But the section running this way, between North Preston and Wigan, never got finished. That's probably got something to do with the Loon Aqueduct being over £30,000 over budget, which was a lot of money in them days. Where this bridge stood was supposed to be another aqueduct, just as grand as the Loon Aqueduct in Lancaster, but they didn't have any money to complete it. They built this temporary tramway to get coal from the Leeds-Liverpool Canal into the newly dug section of the Lancaster Canal. The trams didn't run on tracks like you would think of them today. They ran on L-shaped cast iron tracks, and horses dragged them all the way from Bamber Bridge, over this bridge, through the centre of Preston, under the Fishergate shopping centre, and to the Lancaster Canal. The tramway was closed in 1879 because the railways basically killed off all the canals. But they kept the bridge because it was a useful pedestrian bridge to get you over the river. Up until 2019, it was a cycleway, and it made up part of National Cycle Route 55. This is fast becoming one of my favourite bridges. That's due to the story of it, but my all-time favourite bridge in the whole of the UK is just a little bit down there. Let's bimble.
A little time. You can protest all you like. We both know, with goodwill on your side and a little time, you can have just what you like. We both know it's easy if you just try. It's better off this.
This is Penwortham Old Bridge, and it's my favourite bridge. It's in a part of Preston called Middleforth, which gives you a clue what was here before the bridge. The fourth bit, a ford. This is where people would have crossed over the Ribble since Roman times. This bridge was built in 1759, but it was a replacement for a bridge that was built in 1755. And that bridge fell apart in the middle and fell into the Ribble. They had to build this bridge to replace it. It served as a great bridge for the people of Preston for many years, but 100 years after it was built, they decided it wasn't fit for purpose. It's only 5.5 metres across, which means you can only have single lane traffic on it. And they needed to get horses and carts going both ways. By 1912 they built a new Penwortham bridge that takes the Liverpool Road across the Ribble. It's just a bit further down the river. But they did a very special thing. They kept the bridge and made it just a pedestrian bridge, which is the best kind of bridge if you ask me. One that only bikes and people can go across. No cars. It's grade 2 listed now, and it carries National Cycle Route 62, the Transpennine Trail. So it just keeps getting better.
Easy, just try. With a simple frame of mind and a little time, you can protest all you like. We both know, with goodwill on your side and a little time, you can have just what you like. We both know it's easy if you just try. You'd be better off this time. Have it your own way if you like. Easy if you just try. Easy if you just try. You'd be better off this time. Have it your own way if you like. Easy if you just try.
This is Preston Docks, or to give it its full name, the Albert Edward Basin. I've done it again. Another place that you didn't know was famous for being a port happens to be a port. There's been boats coming into the centre of Preston down the Ribble since at least Roman times, since boats were invented. But it wasn't until 1837 when trade really picked up here. The Preston Consortium, or the Ribble Navigation Company, decided that they would canalise the River Ribble and make it easier for ships to get down it. Up until then, the river had split off into a few different streams and then come back together, and it was a bit of a nightmare to get ships down there unless the tide was incredibly high. They hired an engineer called Robert Stevenson, and he was a Scottish engineer, famous for building lighthouses. He built the Bell Rock Lighthouse, which is Britain's oldest surviving sea wash lighthouse. A sea wash lighthouse is one where the sea completely surrounds it. It's not on top of a cliff or on a rocky outcrop. It's in the middle of the sea. He decided to dredge a big channel straight through the River Ribble, straighten it off, meaning that ships could get down to Preston. But even after that, they found that the River Ribble wasn't actually deep enough for those ships. And at low tides, they'd be at risk of capsizing into the mud of the Ribble. So in 1884, they built this, the Albert Edward Basin. And they had a series of locks leading up to it, which meant they could have it as deep as they wanted. Ships could stay here and unload hundreds of tons of cargo and not be at the mercy of the tides. The first 3 ships to enter the basin were, of course, the Royal Party and their steam yacht. They'd come for the opening ceremony. There was another little boat filled with cement, and the third ship was the SS Lady Louise. She'd been chartered by E.H. Booth & Co. You may know them now as Booth's, the supermarket. It's hard to picture an old wooden ship full to the brim with sweet chili hummus and gluten-free garlic flatbreads. By the 1960s, Preston dealt with 16% of the UK's freight and ferry services. They had ferries running from here over to Belfast and the Isle of Man. In fact, there's a British Transport film on YouTube about the opening of the roll-on roll-off ferry port here at Preston. Unfortunately, in the 1970s, we had a massive recession in this country, and the port didn't survive, and it closed in 1981. The last ship to leave was the Sea Rhine, and that was bound for Singapore. But by the 90s, they regenerated the port, knocked down a lot of the buildings, and made it for yachts and narrowboats and things like that. Built a Morrison's, and a B&M, and a McDonald's.